I can connect that to the evolution of, I did the Corona Cipher, which was a rap I wrote, which was the first time I was like, oh, I'm going to write a rap. That then connected to writing the monologues, which connected to me getting the film writing work, which connected to me then writing Conundrum as giving myself now to the freedom to write rap. So like I find like every little chance I take usually evolves into a bigger opportunity. So it's like be willing to fail safely.
Hello, and welcome to KeyBARD. I am Thembi, and on this episode, we get into part 2 of an amazing conversation with actor, writer, and teaching artist JJ Johnson. Our discussion continues with JJ taking us deeper into his creative process, sharing what it's like to navigate the vulnerability, pressure, and freedom of creating a solo theater piece, and the intensely collaborative nature of writing for film. He also reflects on the origins of Galvanize, a truly special network for Black theatricals in the DMV, celebrating its 20th anniversary in 2025. Settling KeyBARDs, JJ Johnson is back. So Conundrum is a hip hop solo piece that you created through a commission with First Stage. So That's a whole different ball game, creating a solo show, performing a solo show. How was that different for you in terms of the writing process and the creation process than creating a show that has several characters in it?
I think the big difference is whatever I'm writing, I always try to think, does this entertain me? Because I want to be entertained. Like I know what I like that entertains me. So I want to write things that entertain me. So I figure if it entertains me, it'll entertain other people. So that awareness is what I have, especially when I'm writing, multi-character plays. Is this entertaining? I don't think so. And like nothing that I've written with more than one character, I usually write anything for me in that. But writing Conundrum, not only did I have that in mind, but also thought about like, okay, now as an actor, what do I like to do performance-wise? So I'm like, oh, I can write raps. I'll write. I can perform hip hop. I can do comedy. Like all the things I love to do as a performer.
Yeah.
I was able to add in as on top of like keeping it entertaining. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, and the switch that I had to turn on for writing a solo show.
It sounds like there was a richness to it and a freedom to it because you were creating something that you knew you were setting on yourself. So it seems like it eliminated that space of asking yourself questions about what other actors might take to and how to support actors in the writing.
Right.
Would that be the case?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because it was all me.
Right. So what about Central Time? Can you talk about that and the connections of that piece to the roots of Washington, D.C.? We talked about Front Royal a lot, but D.C. is where you've done a lot of your work and where you've it's been sort of the nucleus of your artistic career in a lot of ways, right?
Right.
And so this piece was connected to the roots and the stories of Washington, D.C. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful to Mosaic and to Psalm 24 for giving me this opportunity. Alongside like Lady Dane and Gethsemane Heron, who are incredible playwrights. Talk about imposter syndrome, like being included in that was just such an amazing honor.
I was going to say, you got some heavy hitters there now.
Right. So since my work up to that point had been Front Royal and like focused on like my life, that they gave me an opportunity to challenge myself, to see if I could write something that's not about me and DC based. And it felt like a love project. Like, I love DC because it's become a home for me artistically and also just where I live now in this area. And so like I was able to honor DC, honor the story of a community, H Street community, which is such an important story, and to dive into the history of all of that, which is connected to the assassination of MLK and the uprisings that happened, following that. And in doing that, still also find a way to make it funny and weird, like me, like still finding a way to insert what I've become as an artist into this DC story. And just being open and again, always keeping the idea of play, because that's always been important to me as well. Like just always making sure that there's room for play and fun in the work. So I think that's where I started from. And then they assigned us 3 to 4 different people to interview for each of our pieces. And so I got to talk to four, three, four, 4 different people, and each of them having, different perspectives on H Street and the history, and then figuring out, okay, now what do I use? And going back and thinking like what really stuck out to me and including those elements and coming up with an idea, like having this vague idea, but then when I sat down to write it, it became something else. But some pieces of what I had initially were still included, but it not being so stuck on my original idea that I didn't have the flexibility to adjust to get what I needed. And in the timing of writing Central Time was so perfect because I had gone to Santa Fe 2 years ago, and so I didn't have all these other little jobs to do around DC. So I didn't have these distractions other than I was there to perform in a play. So we would rehearse in the afternoon, evenings. So I had the mornings and like early afternoons to write. So I had all this time for 2 months. I could just get up in the morning, get ready, eat breakfast, and then write. And to be able to discipline myself to do that, I was able to finish the first draft of Central Time before I came back in June 2023. And when I look at Central Time, not only do I see the story of DC, but just as an artist, I see Santa Fe, New Mexico, because I wake up and look out my window. My desk was facing Santa Fe, out the window. And so there's like
Yeah, that's a
this.
flex. It's probably gorgeous.
I mean, and as an artist, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this, I'm having a writer experience when I'm in Santa Fe, like right, like it's just,
It's like a
I'm like,
writer's retreat, JJ.
it was beautiful. And as a person who's still trying to confidently say that I'm a writer, I had that experience. And like I feel like the piece benefited from me being able to spend so much time and energy and thought. Um, I was able to invest a
Not in
lot in that.
DC.
Not in DC.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like
right?
I
It's
wrote it
like
not in
it's not
DC.
yeah. Yeah, you didn't need to be in DC to write it. That's beautiful. Like there was something you needed to commune with within yourself to have what it took to write the piece about a different location. That's so interesting.
Like I really thought about the music of the piece because it goes between 1968 and 2023. So I was like researching like the hot music of the era, and like each scene is titled after a top 10 song from the 1960s, so like, and then creating a playlist and listening to that music and like letting that music be a part of the landscape of the piece. And yeah, yeah, yeah,
That
just
sounds like
amazing.
such an ideal, yeah, it sounds like an ideal writing scenario, right? Of an ideal
Yeah,
writing environment. And like you said, you didn't have the distractions that you would have in DC, and you were just able to focus on writing in the mornings before you went to rehearsals and performances and things like that. And so it just it begs the question, why don't all of us as artists have that time? Imagine the kind of work we would produce if we had that kind
that time.
of support in time, right?
Right.
It's pretty incredible.
It helped me to understand why I see like writers retreats popping up. And I've been invited to a couple. I haven't been able to go to them, but I understand. I'm like, oh wow, like yeah, just being able to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city just for a week or a couple of days to just be able to focus on the writing. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, it's such a reset, right? And then once you do that reset and you can focus your brain in a way that's not being pulled in multiple directions.
Right.
Speaking of being pulled in multiple directions, you do a lot. You also have written for film. You spoke a little bit about this earlier. Right. So you let me understand. Do you always write for film with a writing partner? Or do you write in some cases yourself? Or is it just like what's that collaborative writing process look like? Where I know that you write your plays yourself.
Sure. So yeah, this is again just one of those. The pandemic changed so much, and like the pandemic was bad in so many ways, but then for me artistically, it opened up a lot of doors for me. And so I took a screenwriting course back in 1997 in college, one semester screenwriting. Took it, wrote a funny, half-hour script for the class, and that was it. That was the last screenplay, the first and last screenplay I wrote until 2020. I get a message from actor who's based in New York, Roderick Lawrence, who I met here in DC like months prior. We were doing Jones Day, which is a law firm. We were doing like mock deposition work. We were all brought together by Jana Valentiner, good friend, who works in conjunction with this law firm to bring actors, and we help young lawyers train by giving them actors or defendants to play off of as they're training. And so I met Roderick there. We became Facebook friends, but I didn't really communicate with him much through these months. I would see him throw up some work. He was the first Black actor to play the character of Guy in the musical Once, which is an Irish musical. It was on Broadway, but he played him out in Utah. And so I saw him post footage of him, and I'm like, this guy not only is a great actor, he can sing. Like he beast, right? Beast. So he reaches out after I had been playing around with writing monologues in the pandemic, early pandemic, and holding these monologue contests based on these monologues that I wrote. And so actors would submit videos, and then I had a panel of judges. I can't remember. Were you on the panel of any of these contests?
No. And quite
Okay.
frankly, I'm very offended that I
Like,
wasn't
as you should be, as you
included.
should be. And now I say that out loud. I'm like, you're right.
Like
You're right.
that's ridiculous, but it's okay. I took a look at the project and it looked really cool, and so I guess it turned out great without me. It's fine, JJ.
If
It's
I do
fine.
another monologue contest, you're gonna be the first judge.
You
I'm so
better. I
sorry.
better be the first person.
You're gonna be the only judge.
That's right. There you go. And you're judge.
And your
I'm
judge.
gonna have a number 1 and a number 10, and it's either 1 or
That's it.
10. Nothing in between. So.
But so like the first contest, our friend Makania won that contest. So I had these monologues that I wrote. Roderick had seen these monologues and liked the writing. He thought the writing would be good. He had been thinking of these films. He wanted to write a film. So he reached out in June 2020 on Facebook Messenger and said, "Hey, I'm looking to write some films. Can you give me a call?" And I'm like, at first, my initial reaction to everything when I'm asked to do something is no, like fear. It's like no. But I reached out to him, and sometimes you get these offers from people you don't know well, and you're like, I don't know, like I don't know their artistic, integrity. So anyway, I was like, I don't know, I'm going to hear him out. But I knew he was a good actor. I saw his performance, I saw it. I'm like, okay, and he's based in New York, so I'm like, okay. So we talked, and he asked for some more of my writing samples. So I sent him a monologue that I had written called Inertia, and then I sent him Wannabe, and he talked that he wanted to write a film that's based on Black men's mental health and what we deal with racially, microaggressions, racism, on even like the highest professional levels. And I'm like, huh. And so I sent him my writing samples, and his producing partner, who's also an actor and a rocket scientist, and Salma Karnine, who used to be in DC. She worked with Cinetic for years, but it was a part of the community. Her sister Zara Fazal was also a part of the community here. So like Salma was somebody I was like, oh yeah, I knew of, but she had done a show with him in New York. So he and her wanted to start this film thing. And after they saw my writing samples, they were like, okay, we can get together. And I was like, hey man, look, I haven't written a screenplay in like 25 years, so if you got space for me to mess up and figure it out. He's like, hey man, it's my first time doing this. We will figure it out as we go along. So we came up with an idea. He wanted somebody, a professional Black male as the protagonist, dealing with like every day, a day in the life of type of screenplay for a Black professional man. He kind of gave me that framework. And so I went and wrote a first draft of a short film that we initially called 1,000 Cuts. And it was a Black real estate lawyer. Like you see him in the morning with his partner, like you have a good day, I have a good day. And as he leaves his apartment, like just all the microaggressions that he encounters on his way to work and then once at work. And then, once he gets back home, like just he's spent. Um, so I wrote that, sent it to him. He loved it. And so then he gave me a lot of notes and we went back and revised and revised. So for the next couple months, I would write something, he would love it, but he also would have a lot of notes. And so we kept getting closer and closer. And then, with Salma working behind the scenes as producer, she was connecting to directors, black directors, people, whose names I'd heard of before. And, like I was like, oh, this is actually something that's happening. Like for real, for real. And then eventually they landed on a guy, Aristotle Torres, who's a brilliant filmmaker, but at the time was young and was trying to work on his like his passion piece that he wrote. He was going through that process, but he was from Sundance. He was a Sundance fellow, but he had agreed to come on as a script advisor. So he took what we had written, this real estate. It was kind of a comedy. It felt like more like a pilot for a sitcom. And he took what we had and rearranged it into like this legal thriller, like this short kind of legal, what it basically is now. And then I, would kind of add little hints here and there, but he really kind of took the helm with that. And then he agreed to come on as director. And so then we were able to film that in Connecticut in like February 2021. It was a big ice storm like that week. I'll never forget it.
I
Yeah.
was going to say, that sounds cold.
Yeah, it was very cold. There was a lot of snow out. And then after that was done, like that following winter, I think, at the end of the year, Roderick reached out again, and this time he had connected with spoken word artist Obi West, and was like, "We want to write like an homage to Love Jones and those Black '90s rom-coms." And I'm like, "Whoa, hold up!" So now it's a whole new process, and again, he kind of lists the framework, like what he wants to do, and I went and wrote the first draft of what became Speak Up, Brother, and we inserted Obi West poetry. Obi was writing poetry for the piece, and so I was working on the story with Roderick. And Roderick, he doesn't type, but he's very keen and like very sharp, so he'll read it and like have very specific notes, and I'll go back and revise. But that's kind of how the collaboration works. Is that he'll give me like a framework, and I'll just take a run at something, and then we'll go back and forth. But it's been an incredible. And now we're writing feature films, and we've been working with the director and cinematographer Eric Bronco, who's been amazing. And so he's been a part of the writing process as well. But it's the same idea. But now Eric will take on some of the work as far as writing some of the scenes as well. So I'll write some, he'll write some. We'll all come together. They'll talk about, give notes, and then we'll break apart, figure out what part he's going to write, what I'm going to write. But it's on Zoom. A lot of it's on Zoom, and now we're working on our second feature script now. Is now we've kind of settled on the first draft, but every couple weeks or so they may reach out and be like, hey, can we finesse this? Can we think about this? But yeah, that's kind of how the whole collaboration process for film writing has gone. Like I haven't written anything on my own yet, and I try to think like I haven't thought of really any ideas for a film if I were to write something on my own. But I really love this collaboration that we've done with the film so far.
It really illustrates the stark differences between writing for film and writing for the stage. Because yes,
Yeah.
there is devised theater and people can certainly work together to write plays, but for the most part, playwrights are solitary beings and you write the piece and the piece is what it is and folks are bound by contract to reproduce it exactly the way you intended. Right. And then with film, it's like this
Yeah.
constant back and forth. And it makes me consider that, with that level of input, and of course, as playwrights write plays, they get workshopped and developed. And so it's not that playwrights don't get feedback, but it is interesting, when you talk about Aristotle and how he said, okay, this is great for television, but I, with a film eye, will tell you that if film is a different genre than television. And so if it's a legal thriller, this shape really makes it more cinematic and makes it different than a play, different than a TV sitcom. And if as a writer, you gave him the foundation for that, for him to shift it. It's like passing something along, adding something to it, adding a little more to it, and it makes this beautiful this gumbo, and I just love that.
Yeah, and I had to. One of the things I remember from taking that screenwriting class in college was the teacher saying like, what you write and what ends up on screen are going to be completely different. because once the director gets it, it's up to them. They can take and change, whereas with theater, writing a play, like you better not change my
You
words,
better not
but you better not touch my
touch
words.
it.
But with film, it's very much like you got to, as a writer, you got to be willing to let go. Like you write and then you give it and then you let go and let them do the surgeries and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
But also with it, there's a respect of like, sometimes you'll see a credit in a film or TV where it's like, written by, and they may have had like a little input, and because they had this little input into the script, they get a credit as written by. So regardless of how much, back and forth input, as long as, like with the initial silent partner, I wrote the first drafts, which look nothing like what the final looks like. But I did set the foundation. Because I mean, like the assignment was a black professional, so it could have been an accountant, it could have been, but I wrote about a lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what it ended up being ultimately. But if you look at the final draft of A Thousand Cuts and the last draft of Silent Partner, it's a big difference. Some of the character names are the same, some of the dynamics are the same, but very different feel and tone in different genres.
Is it different from the claustrophobic corner comedy hour minute?
I think the underlying thing for all of these things are just me having fun, feeling the need to play,
Yes.
feeling the need to play. That's what what lies underneath all of these things. So yes, claustrophobic comedy hour. It wasn't the claustrophobic comedy. I don't even remember what I
It was
made. Claustrophobic comedy
the
hour minute.
claustrophobic okay, hold up. The claustrophobic corner comedy hour minute.
Oh, thank you,
I
Thembi.
got you. I
Thank you for
got
your
you. I'm
research.
gonna work on a jingle for that. Like it feels like it needs like
Oh my
a
gosh.
song. It's so alliterative.
Yes.
Just saying.
Please.
You got to bring it back.
Please, yes.
What brought that about? It's hilarious. And so you.
Panic. Pure panic brought that about. That happened within the first week or two of the quarantining, shutting down, everything shutting down. I was in the midst of, I was about to start rehearsal in late March of 2020 for a show. And then we got word that that wasn't happening. And of course, all around the globe, or all around America, theaters were shutting their doors and closing up, and productions were being stopped. And so, like, as an actor, I'm like, are we ever going to work again? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? But I always have that silly voice in my head. And my job at the time, I was working like early mornings, so I was done usually by 7:30 in the morning. So I had full days of just my mind running free.
How are you done by 7:30? When did you start? Like
We'll
5,
start.
6?
I was working part time from like 3:30 to
Oh,
7:30,
okay.
like 5 days a week.
Got you. So you were starting early.
And I was working from home. So like, I was home. Um, and I had this at the time where we lived, I had this little room off to the side of our bedroom where I had set up all my lighting and like when I audition or whatever. So that room was like where I would film things. And that's where I would film like some of those little moments in claustrophobic corner comedy hour minute. And I think the idea of like the spoon as a microphone was what, like, it was just like this idea, whatever. But then I was like, what would be ridiculous is if you hear the applause, but you never know what the applause is about. You just you see him kind of reacting and holding for applause. But again, like, I don't know. To me, it's entertaining. Again, like, it's funny to me. So I would do these little non sequiturs, these unrelated little vignettes, and kind of throw them together, and just hopefully people would laugh at my silliness. And so I did one, and people responded, of course. And so then once you get me started, then once people start laughing, then
It's
it's hard for
on.
me to like calm it down.
Right.
It's on.
Right.
So then I did like 4 episodes altogether, but I made sure they were all 1 minute long, and it was just me at home being silly.
What I love about them is that they're so evocative of how we felt at the time, where we didn't know what was next.
Sure.
We didn't know how long it was going to last. We didn't know what the heck was even happening. And so there
Right.
was this sense of panic. There was this sense of, what do I do with all this pent up creative energy? am I going to have an outlet for it? And so you already had these mechanisms in place with your YouTube channel. You were like, well, let me work on some of this creative energy. So I think that yes, while I found them hilarious, and I'm sure the other folks who have responded and commented enjoyed it, but I feel like also there's a healing aspect of that. There's a processing aspect of that. I think for us as humans, we have to be able to process and understand what's happening around us in some way. And creativity is in my opinion, I know I'm biased, but it's the best way to do that. And I think that what you did was so profound because you showed us how we can try to figure this whole thing out.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just
Wow.
powerful to me. So yeah, it was funny and hilarious, but that release, right? The release that we needed
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's just something that I think was really the most impactful part of that work. And
Thank you.
yeah, of course.
And I was just going to add, like, I can connect that to the evolution of, I did the Corona Cipher, which was a rap I wrote, which was the first time I was like, oh, I'm going to write a rap. That then connected to writing the monologues, which connected to me getting the film writing work, which connected to me then writing Conundrum as giving myself now to the freedom to write rap. So like I find like every little chance I take usually evolves into a bigger opportunity. So I think for me, the claustrophobic corner moment, the lesson for me is that it allowed me to open up to bigger things that led to me actually, getting bigger work.
So really following those instincts are important, it sounds like, when you have a
Right,
thought and you're
right.
wondering, oh, what if I taking those chances
Right.
and
Stop doubting ourselves. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because it ended up being a
And if it
threat.
failed, then it's fine. I'm still going to be an actor. I'm still getting work, so it's like be willing to fail safely.
Yeah, I agree with that, JJ. And I have to say, I've been thinking a lot about what that is. What is failure, right? We
Yeah.
we are all raised under a capitalist mindset, a monetization mindset, right? Where it's like
Hmm.
amass as much money as possible. With social media, it's like get as much eyeballs and validation and likes as possible, right?
Hmm.
But is it failure if you complete the process, JJ? I don't know. It's just a question for the ages. I don't know if it's a
I'm
real.
through.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I hear
Yeah.
you. I hear you, and I respect what you're saying. But I just would submit that it doesn't matter, honestly, if nobody saw it, but you got to do it.
Right.
Because to me, I mean, maybe
Right.
the idea of people responding encouraged you to keep going, but you starting that process allows you to practice your craft in a way
Right.
that then,
Right.
like you said, right, led you to other
It's
things.
practicing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being, I don't know. I think it is
That's
interesting,
gospel.
right? I'm just saying.
It's
Like
gospel.
it just
Yeah.
connects. You just made all those connections. Like, okay, I did this, it led me to that, led me to that, led me to that. And just these things continue to lead you to these other opportunities. So they all seem to be
I think my mind works in those connections because I think about you and the effects that you've had on my life, like the immense effects that you've had on my life. Um, when I was living in New York, going broke, speaking of capitalism, and
capitalism.
my dear friend Thembi, who was working at the Forge at the time, reached out with an audition. I was
I
non-union. I was,
remember
in New
that.
York, desperate for like money and pay. And you reached out about this role of they were looking for a 20-something-year-old black male for a member of the wedding
Yep. I was
at
like, that's
Ford's.
that's JJ.
And
JJ.
I'm
JJ.
glad you saw that. But you doing that got me out of the poverty that I was in because well, first of all, like the doubt that I had I was like, Ford's will never hire me. But let me go down and audition anyway because Thembi's reaching out to me to audition for this. And when I read the script and I start to say the words, like when I go through the process and I sounded the words out of my mouth, I'm like, these words feel good. They feel connected. The character of Honey Brown felt so connected. I love this character. I need to go audition for this. And it felt, in the audition, the callback, it all felt very serendipitous, like unlike most auditions I've been on. And so ended up getting it, and I got my equity card from that. And that's, again, changed my life because my friend Thembi reached out to me. And then
Listen,
I came back to DC
Well, it wouldn't have
where I've
mattered.
been since.
It wouldn't have mattered, JJ, if you didn't believe enough in yourself to do it. So I appreciate
Sure.
the kudos for making the connection, but you had to take the leap, you know?
Sure.
You had to believe that you could do it. But I receive that. I receive what you're saying, and I'm very
But I
grateful.
need these friends.
Yeah,
I need
facts,
these friends
facts.
like Thembi.
Facts. No, you're not
Thembi and
wrong.
Dawn.
You're not
I
wrong.
need these friends. We need this network.
We
You
do.
know
The
what I mean?
network is huge. You know, we're about to speak about that in a
Yeah.
minute, but that's real. That's
Okay.
real. I'm not gonna push back from that. You're right. Because
Yeah.
of where I happened to be sitting at the time and what I knew about you. You know, for a time I had strongly considered casting because I knew enough people. I knew what they were, you
Mm.
know, like I was like, I could do this because
You
well,
see
people
that.
are always calling me, asking me about people anyway, or people always ask me like who I think
Right.
should do X, Y, Z, and you know, so it's something that I think I appreciate what you're saying, and I'm grateful that I could just be a thread in that, a bridge for your
Absolutely.
destiny, you know, and what you were meant to
And that's
do.
only one way. There have been other ways that you've been instrumental, but I'm gonna say that one right now.
You
Yeah.
know, it's listen, that goes
Yeah.
both ways for sure. You know that. You know that goes both ways.
Show.
So
For
that's
sure.
yeah. I'm very grateful to have you as a friend and for so long, you know. And the
Yeah.
fact that we're
Yeah.
like almost exactly the same age, except one of us has seniority. And I just want to make sure that we remember who that is. Just get clear with that. So um
Your podcast.
That's
I'm not
right.
going to push
Yeah,
back.
that's right. You can't, but one of us is older, much older, like
Ooh, I'm
30, maybe
warm.
not even 30 days, like 15 days, 20 days.
Like Santa plays this game with me, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
she was born in November of '74.
Oh,
She's a
I
couple
didn't know
months older
that.
than me.
That's great. Oh, but she's got me.
She pulls that card.
Yeah.
She's pulled that card on me. She tries it. Yeah, I mean,
You said no, you hit her with the Uno reverse. Like, don't do it. That's great. She's November. Is
we
she a
both
Scorpio? Or a Sag?
Sag.
So she's a Sag too. That makes sense. That's why she's so great.
Her birthday is a week before my mother's.
Mm-hmm.
Like exactly 1 week. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, maybe we do marry our mothers in a sense.
I mean, if the data
Yeah.
bears it out, JJ. And she's wonderful, so it makes sense, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so okay.
Very fortunate.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You do voiceover work as well. Can you talk a little bit about how that requires a different part of your brain and how is that different from performing on screen or on stage?
There's an isolation factor to that. When I have to do that, that's me in my closet with the door closed and like a blanket overhead. You know, it's very different than being in a room full of people, you know. And a lot of times with the work I do with the voice acting work for Graphic Audio, which is a local company that hires actors to produce these like audiobooks with graphic novel
I'm sorry,
audiobooks.
voice acting. I said voiceover. I apologize.
Well, it's all like I'm learning the intricacies of it all because I do that, but I also narrate audiobooks for Potomac Talking Books, which is a subsidiary for the Library of Congress. So narration versus like voice acting. So with the voice acting, it's just, you know, I get the script. Like I just got requested to do another story in a couple weeks. So I'm going to look at the script, and it's a character. It's a recurring character, so I get to revisit a character. And it's just, you know, I'll go in and it'll be the director on the other side of, it used to be Discord, now it's Slack, where we're, you know, on a call together and they will read the other lines to me and I'll just, you know, respond accordingly. But it's, you know, taking time to like listen or to read the script, knowing, you know, what the story is, and they'll fill you in on the story as you go along too. They're like, okay, in this moment, you know, we're trying to rob, you know, this group of people, and you know, you just hurt your foot. So, you know, and what's fun about working with the graphic audio is that you do a lot of dying in these scripts. So, you know, you're in your closet and you're like, "Ah!" you know, screaming or, you know, whatever. And
That's
it's very
what,
specific
yeah,
too. Like,
that's what I wanted to know. Like, are you like, I am your father? You know, like you're
well,
doing
of
all the
course, yes,
voices and
there's some of
stuff.
those moments. Right. And then, you know, you get shot or you get pushed or, you know, like all this little, ugh. ooh, like you get to make all those little noises, so that's fun. Whereas with like book narration, you're just reading. I'm reading, a book. I'm narrating. And with this, since it's not commercial work, I don't have to worry so much about differentiating characters. So I don't have to act as much. Just have to have a general idea of what the story is.
Okay. So that's more, it sounds like it's maybe a little bit more heady. You're more thoughtful in your work than the external stuff.
Yeah, and I get to read these books, and like sometimes I read like really good books. I'm like, oh man, like I get paid to like read these books out loud, and so yeah, yeah,
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you also teach acting.
Mm,
If you don't do enough
I'm
things,
tired. You're like, what do
you
I
do all
do?
the things. Yes. You're like, yeah, you're like, this is making me tired. I do a lot of stuff.
Need a nap.
Hmm. What are some of the things that you've learned from your students lately?
Ooh, oh, they teach you. This is another one of those areas where I'm like, Thembi got me into this, the evolution of things. But yes, I never wanted to be a teacher until
I'm
Thembi
just
was like,
pushy. You're
I
just saying I'm
know.
pushy.
But you with the Ford's Oratory festivals every year, like that's how I started with this teaching because I did not want to do that. But with Theater Lab, and I've been teaching with them now for over 4 years, and it's been a blast. Intro to acting, and then recently I started teaching beginning scene study. What I'm learning is that if you provide them with the safety to be open, that you can get them to really vulnerable places quicker than in the type of training that we came up in, where it's a little more rigid. And you're like you're told to be vulnerable, but then you get yelled at if you're not vulnerable enough. It's like, how am I supposed to feel
Right.
safe in this
Yes.
environment when you keep coming at me and attacking me when I'm not quite giving you what you want? But I found like all those toxic traits of the former teachers, I don't have to do that. I can lead people with kindness, and I'm finding they're teaching me that they are ready to go there if I just lay the foundation for them to explore. And like, I'm like, every session, I'm like, especially there's always at least one, but like this session, I'm finding there are more. I'm like, you sure you haven't acted before? Because I'm seeing, them connect and seeing them listening to each other and making choices and going and trusting their impulses and spontaneity. So I'm like, am I wrong in what I'm seeing? Or is teaching with kindness like a better way? Possibly.
Listen, they're so fortunate to have you as their teacher because I think that the trauma that a lot of people have experienced with educators, a lot of times in the performing arts, who are very harsh and aggressive and negative, I really think that, there will be people who will say, well, that turned out great because of it. And that's the better way to do it because that teacher didn't take any stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's like, but then how do you explain the people who were nurtured and supported and felt safe doing great? Like, why would you choose the trauma over the greatness?
Same argument I've had about corporal punishment.
Talk about it.
Come on. Come on.
Come
Come
on.
on.
That's for real. That's it's the same thing,
Why
right? It's the
choose the
same idea. That's a
violence?
really good point.
Right, right. Why? If we know the other way works just as good, if not better, why
Yeah,
choose the
I mean,
violence?
research reflects it. Yeah.
Then it
But
becomes
people,
about you. It's not about your student. It's
yes.
about you and what you need. So,
Mm-hmm.
ego. There
Oh,
we
see,
go. Ooh.
there's that ego.
Mm.
There's that ego. It's so true. And you leave your student or child confused and
Right,
detached
right,
because they don't, now they're just in fight or flight and they're
right.
not learning anything. They're not growing. And so I think it's beautiful that you're modeling for them in your teaching of the content, the way to lead with love and connection. And in these days and times, that's something that you don't see a lot of in our most visible spaces of
Mm.
people leading with love and leading with connection and how good that feels and how you can create your best work when you feel good rather than creating work out of trauma.
Right.
There's this addiction to trauma that
Yeah.
many of us have developed where we don't feel like it's right if it's not traumatic.
Right.
And
Yeah. And we don't question it.
I
We don't
mean,
stop to think about it or question it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, in the actor realm, staying in the actor realm, you think about I think about the idea specifically of Black trauma and our addiction in particular to Black people suffering, right? And the idea that like we're meant to suffer and that's just our lot in life, and this
Right.
narrative that that's okay. And so I think that connects to it in a lot of ways too. The people telling you, well, I expected you to be trouble and all of that. And this concept of, okay, who wins awards? Like when Black people win big acting awards, a lot of times it's in a role where they were traumatized in some way, not a liberated Black character, because why would we reward that? And so it's interesting, us as Black artists having to navigate an environment that wants to reward us for telling stories of trauma, wants to reward us for depicting Black trauma on stage so people can absolve themselves of any
Oh my
responsibility or
gosh. Come on
connection
now.
to it, right? By
Mm.
being like, oh, it's out there. But that's a whole that's
Oh
a
my
whole other
gosh.
conversation.
You are
But
preaching.
I'm just listen, I'm just saying that to say that I appreciate that you, as an educator, bring that to your students. And I have to say, yes, I'm pushy. Yes, I knew you could do it. But
I
you may
thank you for
remember
it.
me saying, oh, we need you. You probably remember me saying, we need you. You
Mm,
have to do it, JJ.
mm.
We need you. I'm sorry. Like, you had to do it.
I
And it's
did.
not,
I did.
I just happened to be the one that had to tell you that.
Yeah.
And look what you're doing,
Wow. I
you
say, like,
know?
I continued to do it for a couple more years after you left. I was sad that you were gone, because you're the homie.
You know
But I
it.
continued to do it, and I realized like it was time to go when I lost the joy of doing it, that particular thing. And so I had no plans of returning to any teaching, and then the pandemic hit. Again, the pandemic. That's when my
Yeah.
hyphens came into play, and Theater Lab reached out to me for me to teach, and I was about to say no, but then I talked to Buzz about it, and he's like, "This is," I was like, "Buzz, I can't really intellectualize the techniques and all." And he's like, "No, but you're a working actor. What works for you? Like, use that as your curriculum. We don't have a curriculum for intro to acting. It's up to you." So I got to build my own curriculum. I was like, "Oh, then what do I want to do?" So then it became about, and so then I tried. I was doing trial and error for a couple of sessions until I finally landed on like the things that I love and how I could see my students respond and watch them grow and progress through the curriculum. And it always comes out so far at the end of every curriculum, those people who came in as strangers leave as family. Like, even if they don't learn acting, they're learning community. And so
I
like that
love
to
it.
me is more important than, you get to see their talent grow as well, but you see them connect and form this, very sympathetic, empathetic bond between each other. They were in my class. We have one more class coming up, but beginning scene study this past week, they were like, we're going to have a party after the last class next week. Like, they're already planning, like they got to make sure that they stay connected after the final class next week. I'm like, my job here is done.
I love it. And JJ,
Yeah.
your class demographics tend to be very diverse. I'm just gonna
Oh
say that.
yeah. Yeah, I
So that
love
says a
that.
lot.
I
Yeah.
love that so much.
You make everyone feel welcome. And I think that has so much to do with how you've been shaped as a person and all the things that we talked about earlier in this
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, and that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and the people who are drawn to you and the people who feel safe with you, and how there are many acting instructors who people typically just don't feel safe with.
Mm.
I mean, it's the whole reason why the intimacy field exists, because
Yeah.
actors and directors are unsafe. But, another conversation.
You're gonna make me cry.
Galvanize. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Galvanize DC.
Galvanize.
Isn't that something? What a
Wow.
special concept, gathering, group. I don't even know. I don't even want to say. Let's talk about that. Tell us what Galvanize DC is and how does that community fit into the DC theater ecosystem? I should say DMV. So listeners who are not in the DMV or don't know the
Right.
DMV or, not in the United States. The DMV stands for DC, Maryland, Virginia. And DC is not really a separate place. It's like cut out of the states of Maryland and Virginia stuck next to each other.
Right.
Just
Right.
imagine taking like
It's a
a
sandwich.
scoop. Exactly. It's like a sandwich. Yeah, I was gonna say like taking a scoop out, but yeah, I like the sandwich better, right? So DC is like in the middle, and most people who live in the Northern Virginia and sort of, I don't want to say Western Maryland, but like the part of Maryland that touches DC, it's all like one place. It's a borderless kind of place, so that's why we say
Right,
DMV.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So let's talk about
And
Galvanize. Oh, good.
no, I was just going to say, yeah, it's not the place where we go to get our driver's license, even though we, we do have those DMVs as well. But
Yes.
Galvan, and you know what? When you said galvanize, I'm like, we still never finalized that was going to be our name. I remember that was like the talk of like, we'll use galvanize for now, but we got to come up with a different name. And then like 20 years later, we're still like, galvanized,
Like,
which again,
I guess the name sticks.
yeah, it's fine. Like, love it. But
Yeah, it's what we do.
it's
So
what we do. It's what we do. And so, my God, I mean, this goes back for me. The journey goes back to around the time when we first met before Galvanize even existed. I don't know if you remember this, but how we met was at Ianla Van Zant's Intervisions bookstore when we did the Romeo and Juliet outreach project. And it was like February 2000. No, February 2000. February 2000. I had at the time, I had been acting in the area for like 3 years, but I hadn't really done a lot yet. But every time I would meet Black actors, I had I created like this very tangible database where it was like printed out, like real like hard copy database of this network I was trying to build, and I called it the Blacktors Network. And like I was getting
yes,
people's
I
people's
remember all of
headshots,
that.
resumes, and like I had a little folder with all this stuff, and like I wanted to, I was sending out people's actual like home addresses to each other, like real
That's
mail.
where yes, talk about it. Talk about it.
This
That's
is
where
my galvanized
you made your
origin
impact.
story.
Yes.
And so you came up to me after we did the Romeo and Juliet outreach project that you came to see, and you were like, I'm interested in joining this Blacktors Network. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, great. And that's how our friendship began. And it was through that.
Yes.
The network didn't last that long because things get busy. And
But it was
plus,
a bridge.
it was
It
a
was a
bridge.
bridge.
It was a bridge. There was a connection. So then time goes on. I go to New York. You reach out. I audition at Ford's. I come back to DC. A couple months after I do A Member of the Wedding, I go to see Emperor Jones at American Century Theater in Arlington, Virginia. I run into Jefferson A. Russell there. We're outside talking before the
Jeff.
show. And he's like,
Hey,
Jay,
Jeff.
yeah, what's up, Jefferson? If you're listening. He tells me, he's like, yeah, I've been talking to a few people, Dion Ordain and, a couple others about like starting something for us, man. Like we only see each other at auditions or if we come see each other at shows. And we need some way to just keep in touch and just, like to socialize and like to build our community and to build our friendships. I was like, man, that ain't nothing but a word, bro. Just let me know. Let me know. Let me know. And I don't remember what exactly happened, but at some point, Bus Howard, actor, great actor, agreed to for us to use his home August 2005. It'll be 20 years this year. And we held a cookout potluck in his yard and house, and about 80 mostly Black people from the DC DMV theater community showed up. There are pictures, and so many people who have gone on to have incredible careers. People were starting out who have gone on to have incredible careers. It's the first time I met Paige Hernandez. It's just, so many people were there for us to be there together. And even though we were eating and socializing in our own little circles, at a certain point, we all got up and kind of explained, this is who I am. This is what I, would like to do. This is why I'm here today. And that was the birth of Galvanize. And then we did that again the next year at a different park in Alexandria. Outcome. But over the years, it went from like those cookouts to like having karaoke nights. We would have galvanized nights at theaters. Like if any of us, was in a show at a theater, we would talk to whoever was in charge of marketing or whatever, and like, hey, can we have a galvanized night where you offer discounted tickets to, members of Galvanize? Then eventually, I think Deirdre Starnes had talked to Theater Washington or the Helen Hayes people. And so we actually would have our own section at the Helen Hayes Awards. And at the time, I think a lot of it was about like just making sure that we were not forgotten in this very white, theater community at the time. And so we would do the galvanized pictures at the Helen Hayes Awards where you'd see all the Black theater community come together for these pictures. And now, like, and then then it became like we did town halls, and right at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a big event with in partnership with Actors Arena, where we had a gathering to mourn George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and to just see. This is the first for many of us. It's the first time we had been in community with each other in person since the pandemic had hit. And we didn't have the Helen Hayes Awards, so there was just a lot of things that had shifted. So this was an event we had outside of Arena Stage, like 300 people in attendance, masks on, and we had people speaking, performing. Lady Dane, Kenyatta, and Kasai, Salma Yene 24 came and, like, had a word with all of us. And it was just us for just a chance to hug, and just it was so good, and to just mourn what we've been going through. That was like the last big, like, external event that we had as Galvanize. We did some, like, online virtual events during the pandemic. But yeah, we're just kind of here, and just, whatever, we can do. We're still thinking of, how we can honor our 20th year this year. And, but it's mostly just actors or theater makers who are just looking to figure out how we can continue to highlight and support the Black theater community here in the area. We never, applied to become a nonprofit or anything. So it's just we didn't have any sort of obligations to anything. We didn't raise money for ourselves. When we raised money, it was for Haiti, like Haiti when they had the earthquake. We had a karaoke night to raise money for Haiti relief. The needs now, like, there are other groups that have popped up since Galvanize, because the number of Black theater artists in town has grown exponentially since, 1999, 2000. And so, like, Billy Christian, who has been an important, like, younger voice, has started a community cares type of group that fills in some gaps. And then there have been other groups filled in by other, if you remember CC Reed, I think he went to UMD. That
Yep.
That there were other groups that popped up to celebrate Black joy, and there were, like, skating events, and, like, it's just all these things to, like, we needed younger blood to come in and say, okay, you all, like, we did this part to kind of create visibility. Now we're going to take the visibility and, like, work on equity, or, like, work on ways that we can care for each other, or work on ways to support Black joy. So I feel like it's become more faceted, because we have so many new people coming to town, and so many who have come to town who are now not as young as they used to be, because this is the way the evolution works.
Hello.
Um,
That's right.
but it's just beautiful to see, like, what we started with and what's now out there, beyond Galvanize.
I love it. And I'm proud of being a part of it. And I'm proud that like you talked about the Blacktors Network. And I remember that. And I remember just feeling so seen and like, yes, I want to be connected with these amazing folks. And so I was so inspired by you and what you did with that. And I think that has so much to do with why Galvanize exists, because of your focus on making sure that we stayed connected and making sure that we were building community. So we did a lot of things. I mean, that time when we went to the league auditions and we
Oh
all
my
agreed to show up
gosh.
early next to each other, right?
Yeah.
So we could all audition in a row, and it would rather than all being spread out and
Yeah.
it appearing that there were no Black people in town, it's like, no, we're going to all audition in a row.
And so for
And
a
just
half
the
hour to an
little things
hour,
that,
yeah, they got to see, like, the DC theaters
yeah.
got to see, oh my gosh, there's a Black theater, there's another Black actor, there's another Black actor. For an hour, they saw Black actors, and so it's like, oh, we can't ignore this
Mm-hmm.
effort to, like, be visible. This was 2000, I think. That was around 2000, and I got a lot
Yeah.
of calls from that.
Yep. Same.
Yeah,
I mean, I think for a lot of us, it created that level of visibility that allowed us to move forward in our
yeah,
careers
yeah.
in ways that just, we took command of that and said, well, we're not being seen, so we're gonna
Well, make you see
make it
us.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
see us. So I'm really proud of all that came from that, and proud that that all the younger folks are moving forward with it and interested in what comes next. And
right.
speaking of what comes next, what are you looking forward to these days?
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
you do a lot. Numerous categories, which I love, right? You
Yeah,
demonstrate the fluidity of artistry in the way that you don't have to call yourself just one thing. That
right,
if you're a creative person, you're always creating, and it's not even about the medium necessarily. It's just about the creation itself. It's about the process and the fact that you don't you have your process where you say no first, and then you're like, okay, but let me, let's see what we can do. That's when somebody's asking you, right? But then when you're driven to do something, you're fully engaging with it and you're taking those risks. So what are you looking forward to these days in your creative life?
Well, depending on what happens with this current administration, I may have to gear up some more claustrophobic corner hour minutes.
Hello.
But what's immediate in my head is next month. Well, not like a little over in May. I start rehearsal on my baby's first August Wilson, and I am so excited.
JJ.
And I don't know if I should be sharing this or not because I don't think it's public yet.
I was about to say you probably can't say which one it is, but I've got a 10% chance to figure it out.
And I tell you what, the first August Wilson I auditioned for was that jitney that you did at studio. And that was what? 2000.
Yes. 2000.
It was 20-something years ago.
2000. Yeah.
And I have auditioned for dozens of August Wilson productions, and I'm finally getting my first one. And so I'm very happy.
Are we going to talk about how when people see August Wilson pieces, they only see certain types of Black men in those roles? Are we going to talk about that? Maybe we'll talk about that. We're going to have to bring you back, JJ. There's a lot of things that I think we got to bring
a certain type of Blackness.
I think a certain type of Blackness, a certain interpretation of Black people, Black men, of course, because August Wilson focuses on that. And this idea of a box again, the box.
Can we do it to ourselves? Uh-oh.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
Yep. We cannot step away from accountability ourselves, right? Being limited in our vision. So I'm proud of you and happy for you. I'm glad.
Thank you. Thank you. And hopefully more will come out soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the time people hear this, maybe the word will be out. And if not, well, keep listening. It's coming.
I'm going to say it is. It's a homecoming. Much desired homecoming. So
I love that. Yeah. I love that. And one thing about August Wilson pieces, as much as we talk about sort of there's plenty of constructive critique that you can offer to the work. But what it does do is it employs a whole bunch of Black actors at one time, and often at least a couple Black designers. And that's something that's really important, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of times in the work, when you ask questions of, does this couple have to be straight? Most people aren't asking those questions. Most people aren't saying, could some of these characters be Black? Could some of these characters be, something else?
Yeah.
And people will usually default and just hire white actors and white creatives. And while there's nothing, I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but I'm saying with all of us out here, it ends up being, okay, if it's a show where you have to be Black in order to play the role, then okay, come on in. But if you don't have to be Black, well, then you should probably be white. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's not that. It's about merit. It's about merit. It's about picking the best people.
And the best people are not Black, because why would they be?
How could they be?
How could Black people be the best person for the job, right? Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. Oh, it makes my brain itch.
Because Black people who are in high positions don't have to work hard to get there. They don't have any other things they're struggling against.
Action.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we know how this works. JJ, I got to bring you back. We have to talk more. There's a lot more that needs to be unpacked. So will you come back and talk to me again?
Absolutely, Thembi.
Yay.
We friends, of course.
Yeah, we are.
We friends.
I miss you too. We haven't seen each other in a long time. And so for the listeners, you all just need to know that JJ and I are the Peaches and Herb of hip hop karaoke.
Hip hop karaoke, yes.
I'm just saying. So if you want to see a real show, like if you want to feel like you're at a real concert and not just karaoke people having fun, you need to see us do karaoke, because it's like you would pay a ticket, a cover price to see the level of artistry in our performance.
Give us Snoop and Dre, give us A Tribe Called Quest, like What?
It's whatever. It's whatever.
What's whatever? You know what I mean? Just put the words on the screen.
Our repertoire is vast. So JJ, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today.
So much fun.
Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you, Thembi. Take care, my friend.
All right. Till next time. KeyBARD is produced, directed, and hosted by Thembi Duncan. Theme music produced by Psycho Sid. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, follow, leave a review, or give us a 5-star rating. Your support helps the show reach more listeners, and it means the world to me. Thank you for listening.